People tend to believe that God is a point of view. For thousands of years, millions, in fact billions of people have been arguing and arguing and arguing and battling and warring and even killing, murdering thousands of millions and billions of people over millennia, trying to convince others that God is this and God is that and the truth is this and the truth is that. Could you imagine thousands and millions and billions of people arguing over the fact that water is not H2O? Can you imagine people arguing, thousands of people killing others, saying that fire isn't hot? When people started to say that the earth is round and not flat, many were persecuted. We say people are persecuted for their beliefs. Well, that's true, but people are also persecuted for the truth, due to the fact that the truth often contradicts what society says we should believe in. Just take the fact that we all believe, we all say, not necessarily believe, we all say that 2 and 2 equals 4. But when you consider 2 and 2, we are considering 2 ones plus 2 ones much of the time. And 2 ones plus 2 ones does equal 4 ones. But what about 2 ones plus 2 halves? Well, that equals 3 ones. So unless you knew what I was talking about, you may not know the answer to this question. 2 and 2 equals, question is answer. 2 and 2 equals 5. How do we get 2 and 2 to equal 5? Well, 2 ones plus 2 1.5s. Or 2 and 2 equals 1. How does that happen? Well, here we could say 2 quarters plus 2 quarters equal 1. So there's often something not quite being revealed when we say certain things like 2 and 2 equals 4. We're not saying, we assume that we mean 2 ones plus 2 ones equal 4. Anyway, that's going off this by and by. There is something to realize, which is God. And once it's realized, then there's no arguing about it. The truth is that God is intimacy. That God is no separation. That God is not a point of view. That God is a reality prior to point of view. That God is that which was never born and will never die. I can say all of this and try to convince you to I'm blue in the face. It has to be realized. Just that at one time, water had to be realized to be H2O, and at one time it had to be realized that the earth is not flat but round. Well, I've realized God, and therefore I'm very happy. Because once you've realized God, there's nothing else to do other than to enjoy the conditions of life intimately. Because once you've realized God and you are allowing God to live you, and that's part and parcel of being happy, you realize that God lives us. And that this vehicle, this body-mind, is an expression of God. I usually use the open hand as an analogy to living as God, as opposed to the clenched fist. This is self-possession. This is God-possession. So being God-possessed is allowing the body-mind to live like an open hand. To be self-possessed is contracting, constricting, suffocating God. And it's from this disposition that people argue from. It's from this disposition that points of view are made. It's from this disposition that people are seeking for this. It's very simple, really. Because once you're here, there's no more to seek. It's like climbing up the hill. Once you're on top of the hill, once you're at the top, you're at the top. There's nowhere else to go. These people who are obsessed with climbing the highest have to climb Mount Everest. Otherwise, they'll continue being unhappy about the fact that they haven't got yet to the top of the highest hill, mountain. So once you've realized God, and that God is, once again, this is the truth, a reality likened to the open hand, which is beyond point of view, beyond my thoughts and feelings and your thoughts and feelings. It's a reality with a capital R, if you like, beyond all small r realities, the personal reality. As we know, there are billions and billions of books. We can consider a book to be an amount of pages. So all these billions of books, different books, the basis of the book is a number of plain paper pages. Now that is the capital R reality, whereas the small r reality is what's printed on the pages. What's printed on these pages may be similar to many, many, many thousands of books. But what is the same is the fact that the books are simply a number of pages of blank paper. That's a fact. That's the truth. So prior to what's written on that page, is a blank piece of paper. So it's the prior reality that God is. Prior to eating a meal is the chef. Prior to the artwork is the artist. It's what's prior that is very often neglected and not considered. We consider and argue about the word. We consider and argue and war and kill due to the fact that there is so many contradictions. My point of view is right, yours isn't. My religion is right, yours isn't. My way of making that particular cake is right and yours isn't. Can you imagine? Do you know of Delia Smith and Mary Berry? Can you imagine those two being at war with one another because one insists on making a Victoria sponge slightly different to the other? There are many ingredients that are the same, but the result is often different. But it's this prior disposition, this prior condition with capital C, represented by the open hand, is God, the truth. So once your hands and your eyes and your ears and your whole body mind is being allowed to be lived by God, then you will be living a life of intimacy, happiness, non-separation. You'll be living a life free of those possessive feelings. This is mine and that is yours. Yes, there's lots of things here. Piece of artwork on the wall, and we say that's mine, and we say possibly that's yours. But in reality, with the capital R, neither is owned by anyone. Even the body-mind is not yours or mine. It comes and goes. The skin, I believe, is remade. Organs are remade throughout our lifetime, replenished. There's nothing that is, in the conditional world, constant. But there is this unconditional reality, represented by the open hand, which is constant. And that, once found, is the only real stability that we can have as we go from here, there, and everywhere. So the truth isn't the truth, with a capital T, isn't a point of view. That's simply your point of view and my point of view. You know, we can have 100 people listening to a piece of music or at a concert, and 90 of them say, wasn't that fantastic? And 10 of them say, it was absolutely awful. These are points of view. Someone might say there's too much salt. Oh no, there isn't too much salt. Someone else will say, oh, it's cold in here. Someone else, no, it's not cold in here. These are points of view. We say it's not good because we don't It's not to our liking. It's not what we're used to. It's not what we're familiar with. So if, like me, I wanted this years and years as a child, if, like me, you want to live a life of love and happiness, that truth which is beyond the conditions of life, the truth that is stability, the truth that I call real God, not the fictitious God, not the supposedly created God with a white beard waiting to judge you when you're on your deathbed or just after you die. No, that's a belief. That's not a reality of mine. Some people say they're dying, they have these near-death experiences. So what? Fine, by all means, base your life on those beliefs. But that doesn't mean you're living a life of love and happiness. You're still competing with one another. You're still aggressive. You're still trying to convince the other that your point of view is right. So to live a life of intimacy where your hands embrace all of the conditions that you are blessed to have, all the conditions that you live with, to embrace and to be in that disposition of already happiness, because that's what God is. God is the state of already happiness. God wasn't made. God wasn't manufactured. God wasn't born. God will never die. This is what is to be realized. This can't realize it. It's only when the hand opens that one can simply say, there is only God. For me, I needed a teacher. We all need re-educating. And my teacher was Adidas Samraj, who re-educated me into understanding that suffering and unhappiness and seeking and competition and doubt and fear and anxiety is caused by attention. He calls it the self-contraction. And as long as we are doing this self-contraction in the head, in the mind, we will not be eternally happy. We will be suffocating happiness. See, here's happiness, joy, delight, intimacy in God. And this comes along and that's what society does. Society convinces one that in order to be happy, we've got to have. Been going on for thousands of years. And Jesus, like many other enlightened people, came about to tell us that God can be realized and we should stop doing what we're doing that prevents God from being allowed to live. Love God first. Stop trying to love your neighbor. Stop trying to convince others that you are likable, that you deserve to be liked. that you deserve to be accepted and stand alone with and as God. Millions of people right now are dying, naturally and not naturally. Thousands of people right now are being tortured for what they believe in. Countries are at war with one another because of belief. This belongs to me. No, it doesn't. It belongs to me. Yes, it belongs to me. No, it doesn't. It belongs to me. That childish mentality. Adults are riddled with childishness, immaturity, absolutely riddled. They're forever dramatizing. This belongs to me and that belongs to you. That doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. Mentality. Adults are eternally adolescent. Believing is okay to have beliefs, of course. I believe that when I before I turn the tap on, it's going to produce some clean water. I believe before I switch the switch on, it's going to turn a light on. And I have faith that it will happen. But I'm not going around arguing about these beliefs. I'm not going around in my head all the time that I hope the light will switch on. I hope the water will be clean. It's nonsense to do that. But they are beliefs, nevertheless. I believe when I open up my phone, it's going to light up. And it did. We have beliefs, of course, but they aren't the reality. And they don't need to be argued and convinced, try to convince others. They're personal beliefs, that's fine. But they're not the truth in and of themselves. As I said, the blank page is the truth. What's written on them is points of view. Or maybe facts. A fact is a truth, but not the truth. We're talking about the prior condition that is always already the case. Before this body-mind can live, air has to be breathed in. The lungs have to have the air. The blood has to have air. All the various elements, oxygen, all the various other elements. I don't need to know the mechanics of the body-mind for that basic understanding. I don't need to know the mechanics of electricity and how it gets into the house prior to switching on the switch. I don't need to know. But if something's not working correctly, then someone with that knowledge, that expertise, will be of great use. But what I'm saying is that if we as a human race wish to live as peace with one another, real peace, we have to be transformed. The body-mind has to be transformed. It has to take on a different disposition. The disposition of love and happiness is a graceful happening. And it can only come when, at the time of surrendering this. got to stop living like this. Clenched fists coming together. It's awful. It's not good at all. So the more of us individuals that can live or can live from that realization that God is our true disposition, that God is the reality with a capital R that can be linked to divine communion. We've got to drop our nonsense. We've got to understand that we are alone, not lonely. We've got to start standing on our own 2 feet and stop expecting others to make us happy. That's scaffolding. A child learning to ride a bike has stabilizers for a very short time. A sapling has to have some support before it matures for 2 or 3 years, and then the tree can stand alone. Us adults are so immature with all of its scaffolding. The less scaffolding we have, the more we can stand alone without emotionally blackmailing others. The mentality of if you rub my back, I'll rub your back, must cease. For true peace, there must be one. As long as there's 2, see there's 2 there, 2 clenched fists. But this oneness is the only way out of the ridiculous, childish and adolescent behavior that adults tend to live. Children are far more mature than most adults. When they are allowed to be children. So how do we get from this to this? By forgetting this. It's like forgetting the clouds and remembering the sun. You've got to find that which will bring you out of this and transform you. And that's what Adida has done in my life. It's not a belief, it's a reality that has transformed this body-mind so that this body-mind can function and live as love, intimacy, can be the true friend, because true friends aren't wanting anything from you. True friends are servants, as I'm doing here. I'm serving, hopefully, your heart so that you might have your destiny changed from this egoic horribleness to this love, bliss, joy, and delight. To become like this, to live like this, you have to realize that this is not a good way to live. If you would like help, then do make contact with me. Read the biographies of enlightened people, people who have broken away from society and all of its mechanism, It's click-clack. I haven't abandoned the world. I live in the world, but I'm certainly not of it. And that is true for you too, if you so wish to. Have your destiny changed from a life of suffering and seeking and never satisfied to a life of stability in that place of love, bliss, joy, and delight. So everything is a delight. Everything is a joy. Everything is embraced, all of duality. You live a life of non-reactivity. You live a life of responding. Allow God to take you over. Thank you for listening.